All right, so are you ready to dive into some learning theories today? This PDF you sent over is amazing.
It's pretty cool, right? It summarizes 4 major learning theories: behaviorism, cognitivism, constructivism,
Yeah,
and the community of inquiry framework.
great stuff.
Yeah, it sounds a little intimidating at first, but trust me, it's actually really fascinating stuff. We're basically talking about how we learn best.
Right.
And who doesn't want to be a little bit smarter and more efficient, you know?
Well, and what's so intriguing about these theories is that they each offer kind of a unique perspective on the learner. It's not just about what we learn,
Yeah.
but how our brains actually best absorb and integrate new information.
I like that. It's like
Yeah.
having different maps for different learning journeys.
Exactly.
So let's start with behaviorism. I always think about this one like training a puppy. You do this, you get a treat.
Right. That's a great analogy
Hmm.
because behaviorism really focuses on observable actions
Uh-huh.
and how we can shape them through these external stimuli and reinforcements.
Hmm.
Think back to your school days. You remember those gold stars you would get
Oh, yeah.
for acing a test or for completing an assignment?
Oh, totally. Or like getting a sticker on a really good piece of work.
Exactly. That's positive reinforcement in action, encouraging you to repeat that behavior to earn more rewards.
Yeah.
And it's not just limited to our early years either. Think about the addictive ding of a notification on your phone when you get a new like or a follower on social media.
Ugh. Don't even get me started on that dopamine rush. I swear sometimes I check my phone without even realizing I'm doing it.
That's the power of positive reinforcement. But as you delve deeper into behaviorism, you'll find some interesting nuances. For instance, your PDF highlights a study on delayed gratification,
Okay.
showing how the time of those rewards can significantly impact learning outcomes.
Really? Tell me more about that.
Well, it turns out that while immediate rewards are great for establishing a behavior, delaying the reward, even slightly, can actually make the learning stick better in the long run.
Wow, that's kind of counterintuitive. You would think that instant gratification would be more motivating.
You would, wouldn't you? But researchers have found that the anticipation and effort involved in waiting for that reward actually strengthens the neural pathways associated with the learned behavior. It's like the difference between cramming for a test the night before versus spacing out your study sessions over time.
Okay, that makes sense. So while behaviorism might seem kind of straightforward on the surface, rewards equal good behavior, there's actually a lot more to it than meets the eye. It's about understanding the timing, the type of reinforcement, and how those factors actually influence the learning process.
Precisely. And that's just scratching the surface of behaviorism.
Yeah.
But let's switch gears for a moment and delve into a different approach. Cognitivism. If behaviorism is about what we do, cognitivism is about what's happening inside our heads, the mental processes behind learning.
So we're stepping away from those external rewards and punishments.
Right.
And like really kind of going inside the mind of the learner now.
Precisely. Cognitivism is all about those mental gymnastics that are happening while we learn. It's about how we process, store, and retrieve information. Think about it like this. Imagine you're trying to learn a new language.
Okay, I'm imagining, let's say it's Italian. I've always wanted to learn how to speak Italian.
Perfetto. Now, from a cognitivist perspective, it's not just about memorizing vocabulary and grammar rules.
Right.
It's about understanding how those pieces fit together, how to apply them in different contexts,
Okay.
and how to connect them to what you already know about language in general.
So instead of just like repeating phrases like a robot, I need to actually understand the structure of the language and how it works.
Exactly. And your PDF actually highlights this point with a concept called schema theory. It suggests that our existing knowledge is organized into these mental frameworks called schemas.
Okay.
And when we encounter new information, our brains try to connect it to those existing schemas that we already have.
Okay, so in this case, my like language schema might include things like subject, verb, object structure, or the concept of verb conjugation, even if I don't consciously realize it when I'm like speaking my native language.
Exactly. And the more connections you can build between that new Italian vocabulary and grammar
Yeah,
and your existing schemas, the stronger those memories are going to become.
that makes sense. So how can I use this to my advantage when I'm actually like sitting down trying to learn? Are there any like practical takeaways from cognitivism?
Absolutely. One of the key insights from cognitivism is the importance of active learning. Remember those drills in school where you had to memorize lists of words or facts?
Oh, yeah. Not my favorite memories of school.
Well, cognitivism would suggest that those methods weren't the most effective for deep, meaningful learning. Instead, this theory encourages techniques like chunking and elaboration.
Okay.
Chunking is about breaking down large amounts of information into smaller, more manageable pieces, kind of like how phone numbers are grouped together.
Okay, that makes them much easier to remember.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And elaboration is about connecting that new information to something you already know, making it more personally relevant.
Okay.
So instead of just trying to memorize that gatto means cat in Italian,
Yeah.
you might imagine your own cat and visualize it saying meow in a tiny Italian accent.
I love it. That's definitely more memorable than just staring at a flashcard.
Right. So we've gone from focusing on those external rewards with behaviorism to kind of exploring the power of our internal mental processes with cognitivism.
Yeah.
But there's another fascinating aspect of learning that we haven't touched on yet. The social dimension.
Learning in a vacuum?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound very fun, does it? I feel like I do my best learning when I can, like, bounce ideas off other people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where constructivism really shines.
Right.
It emphasizes this idea that knowledge is something we actively construct through experience, interaction, and collaboration, not just something that we passively receive.
So it's less about the sage on the stage kind of lecturing at us and more about getting our hands dirty and, like, figuring things out together.
Exactly. Think about a time you were part of a successful group project. Maybe you were tasked with designing a website, writing a play, or even just like solving a complex problem together. Chances are you learned not only from the task itself, but also from the different perspectives and ideas your teammates brought to the table.
Oh, totally. I'm thinking back to this one project in college where we had to, like, build a model city out of recycled materials. It was a mess. But we were also engaged in the process, arguing over designs, troubleshooting problems together. We learned so much more than we ever could have from just, like, reading a textbook about urban planning.
That's a perfect example of constructivism in action. And your PDF actually highlights some really fascinating research on this very topic. It turns out that learners who engage in these collaborative problem-solving activities often outperform those who learn in isolation, even on those individual assessments.
Wow. So working together doesn't just make learning more fun, it actually makes us smarter.
It appears so.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes sense if you think about it. When we have to explain our thought process to others, challenge assumptions, defend our ideas, it forces us to engage with the material on a much deeper level.
It's like that saying, to teach is to learn twice.
Precisely. And this brings us nicely to our final theory, which kind of takes this idea of collaborative learning to the digital realm, community of inquiry framework, or COI.
Okay, and this one feels particularly relevant these days with online learning becoming more and more prevalent.
Absolutely. While the principles of COI can be applied to any learning environment, they're particularly crucial for creating those engaging and effective online learning experiences. Remember those three presences we talked about earlier? Social, cognitive, and teaching?
Yeah. I'm starting to see how it all kind of fits together. You've got that social interaction, the challenging of ideas, and the guidance from the instructor, all working in harmony.
Exactly. And your PDF gives a great example of this in action. It talks about a study where students in an online course were divided into two groups. One group had access to this really lively discussion forum with regular prompts and feedback from the instructor, while the other group only had access to like pre-recorded lectures and assignments.
Okay. I'm going to guess the discussion group probably fared a little better.
Significantly.
Yeah.
The students who participated in that online community reported much higher levels of motivation engagement and ultimately better learning outcomes.
So it's not just about having the technology, it's about using it to create those meaningful connections and facilitate that, like, back and forth exchange of ideas.
Precisely. And I think that's a really key takeaway from our deep dive into these learning theories. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. The most effective learning experiences are often those that combine elements from multiple theories, tailoring the approach to the specific context and the needs of the learners.
So as we wrap things up here, what's, like, the one thing you would want our listeners to kind of take away from this whole exploration of learning theories?
You are not a passive recipient of knowledge. You have the power to shape your own learning journey. So embrace your curiosity, experiment with different approaches. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And most importantly, have fun along the way.
I love it. Thanks for taking this deep dive with me. It's definitely given me a lot to think about. And for everyone listening, be sure to check out the show notes for links to that awesome PDF and other resources on learning theories. Until next time, keep those minds engaged.